Hello, I'm Robert, a fact checker and science blogger, and helping people who are very scared of various things for our doomsday debunked. And in this particular case, it's about the protesters who broke into the US embassy compound in Baghdad, and their mind goes to the idea, would this start World War III? No, not at all. There's no reason this is going to end into any kind of a war. Now, a bit of background to this. These are protesters, and Trump claimed that they're supported by Iran, but there's no real reason to suppose they are yet. He hasn't given any solid evidence. They are obviously Iran sympathizers, but the background to this is that the US has just launched a bombing raid on Iraq on Sunday, where they killed some Iraqi soldiers who are Iran sympathizers and supported by Iran. Now bear in mind that Iraq is regarded as a civilian country. It's a sovereign country, and the US is not at war with it, and it did not have permission from Iraq to bomb its citizens. And so it's not at all surprising that Iraqi citizens with Iranian sympathizers would want to storm the US embassy compound. I mean, what else can you expect if you do something like that? And I don't think you need to assume that Iran is behind this at all. I mean, it might be, but there's no reason to suppose it is, particularly. And so I hope you can see there's no reason why this is going to lead to any kind of a war. And it just should be expected that if you do something like that, then you get some repercussions. Now, I'm not saying these people are right to storm the US embassy, but I'm just explaining the context. And they weren't firing weapons. Some of them threw, I think, petrol, improvised petrol bombs. That's about it. And then the larger context. So there's no way this is going to lead to World War III. Absolutely no possibility at all. And then, could give a further background, people often worry about that the US is about to invade Iran. Absolutely no way. There's never been a possibility of that. It's never built up the amount of troops that would be necessary. And this was a senior military figure from the UK who said, I can't remember, he was the retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, who was the former spokesman for coalition forces in Iraq. And he had just come back, coalition forces in Iraq. And at this time, from I quoted here, that he had just gone back from a period of looking into what was happening over there. And he said that they have in total, in the whole US Army, they have over 500,000 American troops. They would need to put nearly all of the, certainly a good majority of the US troops remove it from everywhere else in the world and use it to invade Iran if they wanted to try to do it. They have not done that, and there is no way that they are intending to do that. Now, you may be surprised, because I mean, if you look at the way the US seems to have invaded Iraq and invaded Libya, but Iran is a far, far more difficult proposition. It has 83 million people, with 39.8 million fit for service, and an estimated half a million active military personnel who are battle hardened. Those are significant numbers, and its geography is about the size of Western Europe, ringed by mountains, ocean, and swamp. It is a fortress. Most of the population lives in the mountain. Lowland salt flats and deserts are largely uninhabitable, and the forces would have to drive across those salt flats and deserts in their jeeps and tanks and things. And the thing is, the US cannot impose a no-fly zone over Iran. It's impossible, because the reason is Iran, because of its history, was supplied early on with very advanced technology and by Europeans and others. And then it then continues to develop itself. It can produce its own tanks, its own helicopters, its own jets, its own ballistic missiles, its own submarines, its own cruise missiles. They captured a US cruise missile, reverse engineered it. There was a lot of skepticism that they had done that, but then they actually flew this thing. And they have this flying cruise missile. They have cruise missiles that are similar to the US ones, that they can fire from submarines that can destroy warships. They are a very formidable enemy. They have also downed a very high altitude drone that even Pakistan can't down. The US fly these drones with impunity over Pakistan, but Iran showed that they can shoot one of these down. They are not a patch on the US or Russia or China, but they are not a walkover. And there's just no way that the US is even contemplating invading Iran. There's no military objective either. It would be a years-long war like Vietnam. It would probably involve the conscription in the US to start an invasion to really, because you don't want to take all the entire US military force away from the rest of the world. To do that, you need conscription. There's absolutely no way that the US is considering this. It's just bluff if you think it is. So I said that some time back, and about the Iranian deal, why the US withdrew from the Iranian deal, and the rather what seems mad behaviour by the Iranians. This is because of a significant factor that is not really explained. We have a kind of Western bias, kind of propaganda. It's not as blatant as the anti-Iraq propaganda. It's more that it is just a natural thing for our journalists to present things in a way that put us in a good light and the Iranians in a bad light. You just expect that, because that's just what countries do. And the bit they don't really explain is that the US supports Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia supports Sunni militants. Iran supports Shia militants, the two branches of Islam that are somewhat at loggerheads in the Middle East, although in other parts of the world like India they get on very well together. Anyway, so these Iranians do not feel that they should be asked to stop sponsoring the Shia militants for as long as the US is saying it's okay for Saudi Arabia to sponsor Sunni militants. And that seems reasonable enough if you look at it that way. I'm not saying that either is right, for either of those to be right, but they have a point. And the US, if you take it from their perspective, they have a perspective, maybe is a better way of putting it. And the US, the main reason Trump withdrew from the Iranian deal, at least an important factor, is because he wanted to add into it a requirement that Iran has to stop sponsoring these Shia militants, which isn't in the original deal at all, and he wants to add this in after the event. And because Iran don't want to do that, they withdrew from the deal. And that basically is what the problem is there. And so this is not going to be resolved by the US invading Iran. There's absolutely no military objective to be achieved there. And unlike, for instance, unlike some of the places they've invaded, there's no significant proportion of the Iranian population that actually sympathise with the US perspective here. They would have no local people supporting them as they invade, and they would have Iranian militants attacking them from the rear. This is just not something the US is going to do. I can't see that happening at all. And as for this protesters chanting "Death to America," then this is nothing new at all. And with that background, perhaps you can understand a little bit of why they do that, but it is hyperbole. Iran cannot attack America. They have been required by internationally required not to construct ballistic missiles that can hit America at all. They they certainly have the capability. They have very, very impressive military capability, as I said. They can do ballistic missiles. They would be far ahead of North Korea. They could do far better than North Korea. They send satellites into orbit. They have a high level of capability of the ballistic missiles. They have these cruise missiles, which of course North Korea doesn't have. But they are not particularly interested in attacking the US. Their main interest is being able to attack US warships in the Middle East and US bases in the Middle East. And this death to America is just one of these things they chant. There's no way that they're actually going to attack America. And they also say they're going to obliterate Israel, and that obviously is absolutely not possible at all. And it's just hyperbole, it's just the way that they talk. They have a tendency to use very strong, flowery, exaggerated language, and that's basically what this chanting is about. So there's nothing here to be scared about, not unless you actually live in Iraq or something like that. There's a case of some rising of tension here, and this needs political solutions to de-escalate and find a way forward on both sides. There may be somewhat increased risk. If you're a US soldier out in the region, then you would be looking to your defences, making sure that you're careful and everything, because there's some rising tension here. And but for most of us, this is not something we need to worry about at all. It's not a personal issue, and there's no way this leads to a war, and there was never any chance of US invading Iran, and no chance of this leading to World War III or anything like that. And throughout every year we have these military things that happen, military conflicts, and we have tensions, we have military events. These do not escalate. It is not normal for these things to escalate. Like, for instance, Pakistan drowning an Indian jet, and they have a political solution. The US bombing the chemical factory in Syria. We have had many military events that are quite serious, and then you have political consultation, and then the things that happened with the US withdrawal and along the boundary between Syria and Turkey, and there have been many things like that happen. These do not escalate into world wars. It is just not something that happens. The sensationalist press keeps saying that this is going to escalate. They seem to give the impression that automatically, if you get a little military conflagration, which of course people die, it's very serious, but it's very small in a military sense, then this does not escalate into world war. That is just not how things happen. And there will now be all sorts of political endeavours to try and de-escalate and find a resolution of this tricky situation. And of course the US attack itself was response to something else, to the Iraqi-sponsored, the Iran-sponsored militants, and they attacked an US soldier. I can't remember. I think they killed a US soldier. So I mean, it's not nothing. It's not coming out of nothing. It wasn't just a random thing from nowhere that Iran, that the US attacked these Iraqi soldiers, but it was not. It was an attack against a sovereign country, and for the Iranians, they are quite understandably, many of them are quite outraged by this, and I think that is understandable. They have a perspective. The US has a perspective, the Iraqis have a perspective, the Iranians have a perspective, and then we have to find a peaceful resolution through all of these things. So anyway, I hope this helps some of you who've got scared of this.